Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Thanks for watching, much appreciated. This is Basic Coding with Adam, and today what I want to do is take you through the top 7 developer tools that beginners need in order to get started. Um, and that's what I try to do is give you guys just a launching point for you to start coding and get it into it and see if you like it, because you really do have to develop a passion for it. So I like to create quick, accurate, fun to follow along tutorials, but in this case, we're going to be going through the top 7 developer tools that every beginner should start with. If that sounds good, then please subscribe below and turn on the bell notification so that you can get notified when I upload a new video. Uh, and also, if you have any questions, follow-up questions, please leave a comment down below. And if you find this video helpful in any way, um, then please like and subscribe. Much appreciated, guys. Okay, today we're going to take a look at the top 7 developer tools that beginners should start with. All right, let's get started. Okay, guys, the first thing we're starting off with, number 7, is, of course, a computer, a CPU. What I find helpful is to have a laptop because those are generally a little cheaper. And by all means, guys, you do not have to go crazy expensive. You don't need a uh, Apple uh, iMac or iBook, with 32 gigs of RAM. That's $1,800. You can get a pretty cheap uh, Windows or Dell laptop. And then what I like to do is supplement that with, you got to get the mouse and the keyboard and all that, which is obvious. What I like to do is supplement that with either 1 or 2 more screens. And you can get a nice television screen with an HDMI cable attachment for pretty cheap, especially on Amazon. And that just helps with the whole process. So essentially, your laptop is in the middle, just like this guy here, sort of, and then you'd have 2 monitors on the side for seeing your projects, maybe checking emails on the other one. And then in the center on your laptop is where you're typing code and highlighting and deleting or selecting and whichever. Um, I am by no means a computer geek. I'm not super into tech. I just know as long as it works, then that's good enough for me. Your RAM speed is, the average computer nowadays is standard and good enough. So whatever you can get your hands on, if it was built within the last 5 years, you're good. Um, and you don't need a super NASA computer to run even a React project or a Node.js project. Okay, so go with the simpler the better. Unless you can afford something expensive, then by all means go for it. But you do not need something super expensive to get going. Next thing at number 6 is, of course, a code editor. And here we have the granddaddy of them all, VS Code or Visual Studio Code. You can find that at code.visualstudio.com, and you can download it for either Mac or Windows. They usually can tell what you're using just by going to the site. And this is the sort of Cadillac of code editors. It's the thing that most programmers prefer, and it's one that gets most widely used, if not for anything, but for the extensions and the ease of use, and it doesn't take up a lot of memory to run. But also, like I said, the extensions, which we'll get into next in the next portion. But also, let me just show you in action. We have here Visual Studio Code. We have our files over here. This is something I'm working on now. Um, and I'll get into the extensions later. You can also have your terminal by coming up new terminal, and there we are. And you have a built-in terminal. You also have a live server here, as well as extensions, and that's what makes this really the best one, or one of the best ones. Our other alternative is Atom Text Editor. You can download it again for either Windows or Mac. And this is nice. It's a nice text editor. It's kind of basic, but it does have a lot of good features in it. And of course, Atom text editor and Visual Studio Code are in kind of competition with one another. So that's why it looks like that. And, like I said, it has some nice stuff in here. You can directly connect to GitHub. You can push to Git. You can also have your Atom Live server. Um, and I'll tell you what, the reason I like Visual Studio Code is when I'm doing projects that require compiling, meaning that you're taking JavaScript code or any code that needs to be compiled and run it. I just feel like it works a little bit better, a little bit faster. For example, like React, like a React project, like a Node project, like a SCSS project, or not project, but files to compile. When I'm using just sort of basic um, HTML, CSS, PHP, and vanilla JavaScript, I like to use Atom. I just feel like it's easier because you're not compiling anything per se. It's just whatever the code is, that's what runs. Even PHP, vanilla JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, and that's it. VS Code I tend to use more for things that need to be compiled and frameworks that need to be compiled. Okay, but either one of these work. There are other code editors out there like Sublime Text, Notepad++. I don't use those that often, but if you go with either one of these two, you're going to be A-okay. Up on our list is, like I said before, is our VS Code extensions. Now, Atom Text Editor does have extensions that you can add. These are some of them here: Bracket Matcher, Atom Live Server. But I don't. I use Atom Live Server the most. The rest of them I kind of don't use, although they have them and they're fine. VS Code is really where the extensions really come into play. And your three ones that I use the most is this first one here, which is ES7 React Redux GraphQL React Native Snippets, which is a mouthful. However, it does a lot um, in basically generating basic boilerplates of uh, React components, classes, or functional components, uh, React native components, etc. It's a really, really handy tool to have, and something that I suggest that you use. It works pretty simply. If I come in here, oops, if I come in here and delete all this and I start typing RAC, and you see how I get that RAFCE, you hit enter and then it gives you a basic functional component boilerplate, so you don't have to type it out. It's really nice. The other one is our live server, which just does basically what the Atom live server does, but it's really convenient when you're doing HTML, CSS, static web pages, PHP, vanilla JavaScript, etc. Really helpful, and it runs, a web page for you. The last one that I find myself using the most, and this is really helpful, especially when you're in the beginning stages of learning and all that, is one called Prettier Code Formatter. Okay, basically it takes your code any way you typed it, as long as you typed it accurately, and it formats it into a into organized code. And I'll show you what I mean. Let's say I have this code and I do an H3 here, right? And then I have this, and I do a p tag, and let's just say I do out here, for some reason I do a JavaScript expression, and then I do brackets, and then when you save, it formats it for you. It's really nice, really super convenient, and it really saves a lot of time. None of that tabbing over and indenting and all that. There's, believe me, there's a million more extensions. As you can see, JS Lint is a good one, Beautify, Debugger for Chrome, NPM. There's one to connect directly to GitHub. There's a million of them that you can explore. Um, but those are three of the ones that I use the most, especially for beginners when you're just getting started. These help a ton, so I suggest you use them and I suggest you install them. To install them, you basically search here and then it brings you to this, and then you just hit install, and that's it. Okay, on to the next one, guys. Okay, next one up on our list, I'm sure all of you are familiar with or have at least heard of. If you haven't heard of it, eh, you know, you're a little behind, but that's okay. Is a internet browser. I'm sure you've all heard of it. I'm sure you all use it on a daily basis. I just wanted to go over my personal favorite and a runner-up, a second best. The first one, of course, Google Chrome. Uh, it's just for a developer, it's really or it should be your number one go-to. It has a lot of features, some of which we're going to get into next in the next section, but it's really my go-to one. Another one possibly is Firefox, which also has some of the browser dev tools for web developers that I said about Chrome, which we'll be getting into in the next video. These are two of my favorites. There's also Safari. I'm on a Windows, so I don't have Safari, but I guess I could download it, whatever, it doesn't matter. Um, Safari's fine. Really, Chrome is your number one go-to, in my opinion. Good old Chrome, baby. And let's repeat after me. One thing we don't want to do is no IE, no Internet Explorer, no Internet Explorer. Okay? It's not good. See? So don't use it. In fact, I think they're phasing it out in August of 2021. So, but yeah, guys, Chrome is the thing you want to go with, all right? Especially for beginners. Next up on the list is what I mentioned in the previous section, which is browser dev tools. So again, we come back to our favorite browser, our favorite internet browser, which is Google Chrome, of course. And we want to use our browser dev tools, which is extremely important, as any developer will tell you. And it's something that all beginners need to familiarize yourself with. You're not going to understand everything about it, and you really don't have to get started, but you do need to understand one important thing. But you can do a lot of things with browser dev tools. Um, you can, I'll show you. So the way we get to it, at least on Windows, is we come right click on your mouse, come down to inspect, or hit Control Shift I. I assume it's Command I on a Mac. Okay, and here we are. This is it. This is all we got. Now you can come over here and you can, whoops, not that, sorry, these three little dots, and you can move it down the bottom. Three little dots. It depends on what I'm working on, but I like it to have it on the right hand side. I just feel like that's better for me. Depends on what I'm working on. But here's all of our HTML elements. You can see, you can get your styles. You can get, now of course this is not a great site, but you can see your script tags, and you can see all your HTML elements. You can also see your styles here, everything that's used, which is nice. Your border, your box layout, which is important for HTML. The next one, the console. This is your JavaScript home. This is where you stay when you're developing JavaScript, right? In fact, you can type JavaScript right in here and you can run it, right? It will also print out your errors here on your web page, and basically everything you need to know is in here. Now, of course, you also have that in VS Code in your terminal, but here we'll show you some errors that won't show up on the terminal. These you don't really have to get into. The network, your sources, not really important. Your memory, no. Performance, no, not at this point. Application, no, not at this point. Security, no. Here's Redux DevTools. Now, of course, it's not installed here because this is just Google, but this is where it would be. You really don't need to get into that to get started. The main thing you want to look at is your elements and your console. Familiarize yourself with these, and it will really help propel you. Next up on our list is something called GitHub. Now, perhaps you've heard of it, or maybe you haven't heard of it, but if you've heard of it and haven't really explored it yet, let me tell you, this is something that's very important, especially for jobs. It is what we call a version control system, meaning that you don't just build an app, whether it be mobile or on the web, and that's it, and you deploy it, right? You do many different versions of it. And for example, when you're deploying to the iTunes store, or I'm sorry, the iPhone App Store, you have to always update your app in order for them to keep it current and to keep it up, meaning that you have to deploy different versions of it, even if it's a small change, even if you change a couple of things. But what GitHub does is it keeps track of different versions of your code from the newest to the oldest. And it's a free service. You sign up just like an email account, and you get um, a free account. It's unlimited. You can, upload as many as you want. I'll show you mine. And you have your repositories, which is all your different, that's my ugly picture. You have all your different projects. And also, it looks good for job applications. If you have a really full, I don't, not yet anyway. If you have oh, this is cool. Turn into night mode. God, that's comforting, isn't it? I didn't realize they had that. That must be new. Um, but it keeps track of all your, if you can't afford a portfolio site because you can't afford hosting, then this is the next best thing. So you sign up like an account. Now you can upload files manually here, or you can use VS Code and you can deploy directly to GitHub through your terminal. Okay, using something called Git Bash. Or there's plenty of other methods that you can do it. But sign up for GitHub, start uploading projects. It's kind of like a social media for web developers, and it's really fun. You can also search projects, for example. Oh, these are all my things. You can do a pull request, which means you pull files that someone else has created and use their files, like for example, boilerplates and stuff, which soon I'll be having boilerplates for sale on my website. So look out for that. Adamdesign.digital, ADAMDESIGN.digital, coming soon. But GitHub, get into it. It's really good, and it's something that you'll definitely be using on a daily basis. Plus, it helps keep all your old code so that you don't have to keep it on your PC and slow it down. Last on our list, but by no means least, is, say it with me, good documentation. Okay, very important, especially for beginners. One thing you need to know is that you don't just dive in and start typing stuff. One thing you need to do is start small. Even if it's just a simple HTML element that you type out and get it to work right. Start with that, do it a couple of times, build on it. Don't jump into doing an entire big project by yourself, especially if you're self-taught. Okay, if you went to a boot camp, that's different. You follow what they say. For example, um, elements, HTML, your tag name. Sorry about that. Your tag name, closing tag. You know, H1, which is a header, P tag, which is a paragraph. Just start with the basics. But w3schools.com, I know a lot of people poo-poo it, but it does have a lot of good information, especially the basics here. It has CSS that you can go through, and it gives you a lot of stuff. I mean, close to everything. It has JavaScript, of course. It even has Bootstrap. It has, I believe it has React as well. Yeah, React, Angular, JSON, Ajax. I mean, it certainly doesn't give you everything, but it's a good reference point if you need a quick reference. Our next one is JavaScript MDN developer.mozilla.org/JavaScript. This really breaks down all the intricacies of JavaScript and how functions work, classes, errors, methods, statements. And if none of that sounds familiar, then this is definitely something you need to familiarize yourself with, because uh, it gives you not only the code, but it also lets you play around with it, right? You can also change shit and run that. Of course, I got it wrong, of course, but it's a really nice little tool. Next up is our React for front end guys or gals. This really just breaks it down. It's got a lot of detailed information. Doesn't give you all the answers, but it definitely gives you a good launching point, which is what every beginner needs. Here is NPM, which is a Node package manager. Now, we haven't talked about Node.js yet, but maybe we will. Basically, these are things you install through the terminal. And if that doesn't make sense to you, don't worry. It will. It's basically a package that you install and use as a dependency in your project to make your project a little bit easier to build and more efficient. But you can search for anything in here. Axios, this is a popular HTTP client. Goes out and gets it basically instead of typing out, a huge amount of code, it's just down to a few lines. There's also Bootstrap, which, yes, is considered documentation. I don't care what anybody says. Um, excuse me, you have, let's see, buttons. It just gives you the code and tells you how, gives you a lot of references. So these are just some. These are certainly enough to start with. I mean, this one and this one will take you a while to get started with. But if you familiarize yourself with these, and you don't have to do everything, especially all in one night, um, it will definitely help beginners out and help get them started with the basic concepts of it. Guys, I had to give you a few extra bonus things just for the heck of it, because these are just some things that didn't really fit in the top seven, but I wanted to include them anyway. It's not something that's mandatory, but it's definitely something that you need or will need at some point. So the first thing is Node.js. Perhaps you've heard of it. It's something that you install. Now, Node is basically it's basically C++, which is a programming language on your computer, and it's embedded inside of JavaScript. So basically, it allows you to run JavaScript on the back end on your server, which normally JavaScript is strictly reserved for um, inside the browser. See, Chrome's V8 engine inside JavaScript. Remember this thing, the console, where you can type console, oops, console.log, hello, and it prints hello. You can also do that now with Node by going to your terminal or your command prompt, typing node.log, and it gives you the same thing. Now, normally without Node, you wouldn't be able to do this. It wouldn't understand, right? I'll show you. Get out of there. Console.log is not recognized. You can't do it. So Node, and not to mention, you also get the thing that I mentioned before, the NPM Node Package Manager, which if you're getting into React, it can be very helpful with that. In fact, it's imperative that you have that. Our next bonus is cloud deployment. Now, it sounds confusing and difficult, and to some degree it is. However, just know that Google Cloud allows you to upload your apps, meaning either mobile or web-based apps, with React, Node, um, PHP, PHP and MySQL, which is a database, and PHP is the code that talks between the database and the browser. Google Cloud allows you to upload for free to a certain level. Now you have to put in your credit card information ahead of time so that in case your app is so incredibly popular from watching my videos that all of a sudden, 10,000 people want to use it, they charge you for usage, but initially they don't charge you anything. And at some point, especially if you're doing any type of web development, you got to know that at some point you're going to deploy your app. Unless you're strictly a front end person, but even still, it helps just to familiarize yourself with it. Guys, that's the end of my video. I want to thank you very much for watching and taking the time to like and subscribe and hitting that bell icon. Much appreciated. I really enjoy doing these videos, and I really enjoy helping people who are just getting started, because I remember how difficult it was for me. But luckily, at this day and age, there's so much help out there, and I just wanted to contribute to that and sort of give back. I know that sounds kind of corny and cliche, but it's true. So I hope that you found this video helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe. If you have any follow-up questions or anything like that, leave a comment. I promise I'll get back to you very quickly. Might not be immediately, but very quickly. Other than that, guys, thank you for watching, and please take care, everybody.